Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to look at another awful case with you, the forbidden fruit. Why do individuals do crimes? Human nature is complicated and multidimensional, and every action has a purpose. This time, we will not examine people with mental health concerns or their proclivity for violence. We will also eliminate military people whose jobs are directly related to eliminating opponents. It appears that the chief motivations for life-threatening behaviors are material gain, revenge, going beyond the bounds of necessary defense, and unintentional accidents. Most crimes occur domestically during arguments and disputes when everything appeared to be all right. However, these acts of violence are not the cause, but rather the result of human spirit deterioration, leaving a lifelong trace. On the morning of January 12, 2019, it was reported that 65-year-old Michael Redlick had passed away. Known in his circles, the former NBA executive with the Memphis Grizzlies and a beloved professor at the University of Central Florida died from a heart attack initially. However, upon the arrival of emergency services, it became clear that Mr. Redlick died from a stab wound to the chest. Various theories were considered, including self-inflicted harm. Later, forensic experts Michael's adored wife played a role in his death, and she was put on trial in June 2022. However, this is not a plain narrative. She did not acknowledge culpability for the intentional crime and repeatedly altered her testimony. The legal battle between the prosecution and defense was lengthy and hot. Ultimately, the court's ruling surprised everyone. What exactly happened in Florida's Winter Park suburb? Who is the genuine victim, and might this tragedy have been avoided? Danielle Redlick, 46, is sitting in the defendant's chair. The accused is of short stature and slim build. Her chestnut hair has visibly grayed, either because she has not had the opportunity to visit a hairdresser after spending about 3 years in custody, or perhaps the gray is a testament to her true turmoil and stress. Until 2019, she was just an ordinary working American woman, a mother of 2 wonderful children, and a multimedia communications specialist. She was not particularly well known, but her name was frequently mentioned in the media following the crime against her husband. This is what happens when the dirty laundry of seemingly respectable spouses is aired publicly. Danielle was born in 1976 in Florida, and her family later relocated to Cleveland, Ohio. Her childhood was typical in many ways. She grew up kind and well-mannered with a creative nature. Danielle was the eldest child in her family. As she matured, her appreciation for beauty intensified. She enrolled at Valencia College, where she earned an Associate of Arts degree. Later, she was admitted to the psychology department at Baldwin Wallace University in 1996. Danielle's mother, Caitlin Aquino, remarried, but the marriage was short-lived, lasting only 2 years before Caitlin died of cancer. He asked for help from Caitlin, the eldest daughter. At the time, 22-year-old Danielle was living independently, but responded to the request thus. After Caitlin's death, Danielle, her brother and sister, and their stepfather Michael Redlick all ended up under one roof. Yes, you heard right, the very same Michael who later became Danielle's husband and was perpetrated on a winter evening in 2019. At first, their relationship was built on friendship. Danielle took care of the young. He grew very attached to the children, who became like his own. He also felt comfortable with Danielle. Over time, she saw him as a dependable support. Despite the 20-year age difference, their interaction was easy and natural. Gradually, the man and woman grew closer. Neither age nor status bothered them. However, Danielle initially didn't want to make their relationship public to her family and kept it hidden for a while. With his new partner, Michael felt younger and more energetic. Mr. Redlick received an enticing job offer to become the vice president of corporate sales for the Memphis Grizzlies basketball club. However, the new position required him to relocate to another state without hesitation. He asked Danielle to come with him, but she hesitated. Danielle didn't want to change her familiar lifestyle, and she was still studying, so she declined. Nonetheless, their relationship continued long distance, and the lovers often saw each other. One day, he showed her the house he had bought for them, impressing her. The cottage was located in a picturesque area by the Mississippi River, and the neighborhood was quiet and cozy. Eventually, Danielle decided to move and live together to ensure he found her an interesting job in the radio sector. Danielle later remarked that everything seemed wonderful at first. It was only Michael's job that later brought changes. Many years later, during the trial against Danielle, her 15-year-old daughter Jaden testified. She spoke of how Michael was an excellent father who did a lot for his family. Along with her 8-year-old brother Sawyer, they attended one of the best schools, hoping to pursue careers in sports. Thanks to their dad's encouragement and support in enrolling them in sports programs, Jaden was close to her father in ways she couldn't. Michael got extremely agitated and fatigued, and in order to relax and unwind, he turned to alcoholic beverages. This became a daily event. He would frequently stay out late, returning home intoxicated and angry. The tension in the house was evident. Danielle tried to help her husband, understanding his predicament after speaking with her. It appeared he would calm down and promise to stop, but his promises were short-lived. One time, Michael missed a dinner they had planned together, which was not the first time this had happened. However, this time they had specifically planned to spend the evening together. Danielle was very upset and stated that if he couldn't make time for her, he should have alerted her so she could make alternative preparations before heading towards the door. She made an ill-timed joke which irritated Michael. He stood at the doorway and smacked her across the face. The slap was so forceful that she staggered back. She then noticed that her clothes and the floor were splattered with blood. In shock, she recoiled from her husband, who began crying and apologizing. Clearly distressed, Michael tried to make amends. Immediately, he took his wife to a Familiar sports doctor and explained what had happened. The doctor examined the unfortunate victim and provided first aid, then recommended seeing a dentist and a plastic surgeon, as the injuries were quite severe. Danielle even had a front tooth chipped the next day. Michael arranged a memorable dinner, was very attentive and caring. Undoubtedly, his wife forgave him and did not report the incident anywhere. There was a fairly strict domestic violence law in the state, so Mrs. S. Redlick felt sympathy for her husband and decided not to cause him any further trouble. In fact, this was not the first warning sign Danielle had. Eddie encountered similar behavior before the incident happened. While they were living together in Cleveland at a concert, Danielle chatted with an ex-boyfriend, which made Michael jealous. On their way home, he dropped a few sarcastic comments about it. Danielle responded in kind. Unexpectedly, he hit her and immediately apologized, noting that he did it because she hurt his feelings. Danielle forgave her partner while also blaming herself. Over time, the incident was forgotten. After all, things happen in relationships. In 2003, the Redlicks welcomed their first child, a daughter named Jaden. A year later, the couple decided to legalize their relationship. It was a prosperous moment in their lives. Everything was going well, but Michael was still facing issues at work. The management changed, and he was unable to obtain the promotion he had hoped for. 7 years later, the family grew with the addition of a son named Sawyer, and the parents were fully engaged in raising their children if it hadn't been for Michael's job. The tension escalated, and he began drinking again, resulting in more frequent conflicts. During one argument, he grabbed Danielle by the throat and pressed her against the wall, terrifying her. This time, his wife couldn't take the rough conduct. She packed up, took the kids, and moved in with her relatives. They originally opposed the marriage, but soon came to accept it. Michael constantly visited her, apologizing and asking her to return home. After some time, their relationship was rebuilt. The Redlicks moved multiple times in the following years, which were unstable. The family patriarch was offered a job in California, where they stayed for roughly 5 years. This period was not particularly successful. The man struggled with his troubles and continued to drink. When both wives were unemployed and living off their savings in 2014, another transfer was planned, this time to Indiana. However, the possibilities for finding a new home and settling matters were good. The men went forward first, while Danielle remained in California with the children. They needed time to sell their old property and belongings. The constant moving had also become exhausting. It was difficult for the children to adapt to the rapidly changing environments. The whole process took a year. During this time, the family's financial situation improved, however. The marital relationship underwent changes. The distance and infrequent meetings affected them. Danielle and Michael grew distant and barely communicated. When the spouses finally reunited, they faced new issues. At one point, Danielle began to suspect her husband of infidelity. He became unusually cold and distant, and the former passion had faded. However, Michael found the strength to confess that his age and health were to blame. He had been embarrassed to mention this earlier, fearing he would lose his younger wife, but Danielle was grateful for his honesty and supported him as before. After trying numerous medications, the couple decided to undergo a course of hormone injections. Testosterone injections helped Michael rejuvenate physically and mentally. He seemed to become younger, regaining his former energy and vigor. With this came an increase in his aggressiveness. One evening, while watching a movie together, Michael fell asleep. Danielle went upstairs to rest the next morning. He entered the bathroom while she was brushing her teeth and struck her on the head. He justified his actions by claiming that she had not woken him up the night before. She responded that she was tired of this and was leaving, which enraged him even more, and he began to choke her. Poor Danielle was unable to defend herself and began to lose consciousness at one point. She felt like she was dying. After some time, Mrs. Redlick opened her eyes and saw her husband standing over her, scared and confused, begging for forgiveness. All Danielle could do was silently crawl away. After this incident, they continued to live in the same house and raise their children together, but their relationship fundamentally changed. Apparently, a point of no return had been reached. The man began to drink more frequently, and home conflicts increased. Despite her displeasure with the circumstances and hatred toward her spouse, the woman refused to leave him. She still loved him sincerely. Danielle was likewise affected by the ongoing issue. She got uncomfortable and irritated, retreating into herself to distract herself. She took up photography nonetheless. Their family still appeared respectable, as most of their disagreements did not extend beyond the home. By the end of 2014, the Redlicks finally settled in Florida. This time, Michael decided to change his career path. Tired of the constant stress, he took a position as Director of External Affairs and Partnership Programs at the University of Central Florida and began teaching, although his income was less than what he made in the MBA. The house was created in the Mediterranean style and had a large square footage. Danielle preferred the attic level, which served as her getaway. She frequently spent nights there, especially when Michael had bouts of anger. Testosterone injections rejuvenated him and restored their intimate life. But even during intimate moments, he could be harsh, and their relationship remained tense and unstable. Against this backdrop, Danielle developed an alcohol addiction. While Michael worked and supported the family, Danielle managed the household and children, increasingly withdrawing into herself. The numerous disputes eventually led to he could come and go as he pleased. During one of these days, another argument broke out, and Danielle ended up in the hospital with a concussion. She kept silent again, afraid that telling the truth would cause problems for her husband, but this time Michael took her silence for granted. During questioning, Danielle confessed that something extraordinary happened in early October 2016. Her husband had attempted to run her over with his car. She was only saved because she managed to jump into the bushes. After this, Danielle went to the police department. However, when detectives began to inquire in detail about the incident, she changed her mind and left. The reason was the same as always. Later, the couple reconciled and moved back in together. However, this proved to be a fateful decision for both of them. On January 12, 2019, a 911 call was made on the other end of the line. A woman introduced herself as Danielle Redlick and reported that her husband Michael had died from a heart attack. When the rescue service arrived at the scene and entered the house, they immediately noticed a strong smell of cleaning agent at the entrance to the living room. The team encountered a bucket filled with pink-colored water. Beyond this, a scene from a thriller unfolded. A man lay on the floor, and it was unlikely that he could have inflicted such a fatal injury on himself later. Forensic analysis confirmed that the blood traces in the home belonged to the deceased. The pink liquid in the bucket at the entrance was nothing but diluted blood. Someone, possibly the homeowner herself, had tried to erase a trail leading from the bedroom to the living room, indicating that the body had been dragged. Despite the cleaning efforts, not all evidence was destroyed. Blood spatter. She was questioned during the interview. She repeatedly changed her statements. Initially, she claimed to have thought her husband died of heart disease. Later, she stated that he had taken his own life following an argument. However, experts refuted her claims. Such a wound is difficult to Self-inflict individuals intending to end their life usually choose a simpler and less painful method. The autopsy showed that Michael died from blood loss. With timely medical help, his life could have been saved additionally. He had a lacerated left eye. Toxicological tests also revealed a high level of alcohol in his system. The investigation revealed that a few days before the incident, there was an argument between the spouses witnessed by their elder daughter. Michael had been drinking and burst into the bathroom where Danielle was hiding. However, their daughter Jaden intervened, taking the bottle away from him. After this, Danielle left the house and returned once her husband had fallen asleep. According to the girl, it was the first time she had seen such a burst of anger in her father, for which he later apologized multiple times. She still maintained that he was a loving and caring father, while asserting that her mother was the instigator of conflicts. The next day, the couple reconciled. Michael invited his wife and children to a soccer game. However, according to witnesses, Danielle appeared upset and was virtually non-communicative that evening. The parents dropped their kids off at a friend's house for a sleepover and were left alone later. Danielle stopped by McDonald's and returned home around 10:30 p.m. Upon entering the home, she discovered her husband inebriated. During supper, Danielle received a letter from an unknown man. When Michael saw it, he bit off a piece of his hamburger and spit it at his wife. He then attacked her, attempting to strangle her. In self-defense, Danielle grabbed the first thing she could, a knife, and stabbed him in the chest. He fell and began to bleed profusely. According to the defendant, she immediately called emergency services, but mistakenly dialed a wrong number. Her actions were later corroborated during the investigation. In a state of shock, she lay down next to Michael and fell asleep until morning, or so Danielle explained. The 11 she resisted trying to bite one of them. She also refused to comply with the inquiry, which resulted in accusations of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Danielle had been on probation for nearly a year. It was also established that the cuts on her wrists were self-inflicted. She claimed she had tried to end her life due to the emotional turmoil, but the nature of the injuries suggested otherwise. They were superficial and not life-threatening. Therefore, her claims were not believed. Investigators also discovered that Danielle was far from a role model. After learning of Michael's infidelities, she signed up on a dating site where she interacted with men and retaliated by being unfaithful. Her profile status declared that she was single and not in a relationship. Analysis of countless messages between Michael and Danielle showed that she still loved her husband once she learned of his affairs. She felt betrayed and disillusioned. She also found out that Michael planned to leave her, despite appearing repentant and desiring to mend their relationship. Danielle explained that it was hard for her to understand and accept her husband's actions. She was heartbroken that she had dedicated the best years of her life to a man who did not appreciate her. The prosecution used this information against her. The prosecutor argued that the crime was premeditated in a fit of rage because she could not forgive his infidelity and the impending divorce. Like Mr. Redlick, she was also prone to fits of anger, confirmed by their neighbors, who noted that the couple often argued loudly, escalating into physical altercations. However, Michael and Danielle were described differently. By those who knew them, Michael was portrayed positively as kind and helpful, while Danielle was seen as quarrelsome. Video evidence was presented showing the defendant acting irrationally and attacking her husband. Friends and Michael's brother agreed with this portrayal. One of them recalled calling her crazy, but assured that all would be well as long as steak knives were hidden. Danielle's lawyer argued that her actions were dictated by self-defense and a history of emotional and physical abuse. Relatives, often witnesses to their arguments, confirmed that Michael was rough and emotionally abusive. They also knew he frequently physically abused and humiliated her, although he never did so in their presence. Some family members reported that Danielle was nervous and quick-tempered, which only emerged after years of marriage. The prosecution clung to the fact that she effectively left her husband to die, which indicated she was waiting it out. They proved that her account logged into a dating app the night of the incident, suggesting premeditation, driven by hatred and resentment, possibly even for financial gain. Following the divorce, Danielle stood to lose a portion of their accumulated wealth. At the time of Michael's death, her net worth was estimated at $1.2 million. It was also brought up that she had repeatedly changed her statements, seemingly trying to confuse the investigation and possibly tampered with evidence. However, the defense claimed that Mr. Redlick was a manipulator and predator. After his first wife died, he relentlessly pursued his stepdaughter and molded a young woman to suit his needs. During the investigation, the prosecution offered the defendant a plea deal to admit manslaughter in exchange for only 10 years in prison. But she declined, despite the fact that she faced a life sentence if found guilty of first or second-degree murder. She maintained her innocence. The trial's outcome surprised everyone. On July 17, 2022, the jury delivered their verdict. They found Danielle Redlick not guilty of premeditated murder because they believed her actions were in self-defense. However, they found her guilty of tampering with evidence, for which she received a 5-year suspended sentence. She had already served 3 years, and these were credited to her. On August 5, 2022, the day the sentence was announced, the defendant was released in the courtroom. What do you think? Was the decision fair? Or were the jury duped into believing that Danielle's murder of Michael was premeditated and cold-blooded? Thank you for watching, people. Please subscribe to my channel.